The 1972 Ford Falcon XA GTHO Phase 4, the car that was too bloody fast for its own good. It should have been the king of Bathurst, but instead it got killed off before it ever hit the track. You think you know the story? Think again. Here are 10 shocking truths about the greatest Aussie muscle car that never was. Truth number 1. Only 4 Phase 4s were ever built, and one's gone forever. Ford only built 4 cars. 3 were development mules, and 1 was a near-finished production car in Calypso Green. And yep, one of them was destroyed in a crash test. Not stolen, not lost. Deliberately smashed into a wall for government compliance. Imagine that today, scrapping what's now a multi-million-dollar unicorn. The 3 survivors, all different in spec. Different cams, suspension tweaks, even changes in carburation. These weren't showroom clones, they were rolling experiments. Despite just 3 cars surviving, the legend has lived on for 50 years. Not bad for a car most Aussies never got the chance to even sit in. Truth number 2. The supercar scare. Wasn't just hysteria, it was a setup. Here's the kicker. The media frenzy that killed the Phase 4 wasn't some organic panic by mums and Camrys. It was fed behind the scenes by insurance companies, nervous politicians, and even rival manufacturers. Why? Because Ford was about to unleash a Bathurst-destroying monster, and nobody else was ready. Instead of stepping up their game, Holden and Chrysler allegedly whispered to the press while Ford copped all the heat. Journalists were handed cherry-picked data and fed headlines like 400 horsepower weapons of road death. It worked. Public fear soared. Ford blinked, and the Phase 4 died before it even started. Truth number 3. It was faster than anything Holden or Chrysler had. The Phase 4 wasn't just going to compete, it was going to humiliate the opposition. The 351 Cleveland V8 in racing trim was reportedly pumping out well over 400 horsepower, thanks to hand-built tweaks from Ford Special Vehicles and the race team at Firth Motors. Better aerodynamics than the XW and XY models, improved cooling, tighter suspension. This car could lap 2 to 3 seconds faster than anything Holden or Chrysler had at the time. At Bathurst, it would have been untouchable. No wonder the competition wanted it gone. Truth number 4. Politicians killed it to look like heroes. The Phase 4 didn't die because of engineering flaws. It died because pollies needed a win. Australia's road toll in the early 70s was a horror show, mostly caused by drink driving, no seatbelts, and garbage roads. But instead of fixing actual problems, they went after 3 prototype supercars. It was easier to say, "We're banning killer cars," than to fund proper driver education or build better highways. The irony? The Phase 4 had better brakes, handling, and safety gear than most family cars on the road. Truth number 5. Ford's engineers built secret variants that were never official. Word on the street is that Ford's engineers didn't stop building when the axe fell. Rumours swirl about at least one Bathurst special prototype pushing 450 horsepower, with aero tweaks, wild gearing, and a top speed of over 160 miles per hour. These weren't officially signed off. They were likely after-hours efforts by race engineers and mechanics who just couldn't let the dream die. Some say they were hidden, others say they were dismantled quietly. But to this day, the rumour mill keeps turning. Could there still be a secret Phase 4 sitting quietly in a shed somewhere? Truth number 6. The media used dodgy stats to fuel the outrage. Headlines like "Supercars a threat to public safety" were plastered across papers. But where'd the stats come from? Nowhere. Literally made up or based on projections, not real-world data. There weren't even enough high-performance Falcons, Monaros, or Chargers on Aussie roads to statistically matter. Later studies showed no correlation between muscle cars and crash rates. If anything, most were driven carefully by older blokes who actually knew how to drive. But the damage was done, and the truth came out after the Phase 4 had been buried. Truth number 7. One sold for over $2 million, and it wasn't even the fastest one. In 2018, One of the surviving Phase 4s sold for $2 million Australian dollars, setting a record for an Australian-built car. And no, it wasn't the fastest or the prettiest. It was valuable because of what it represented, the car that never got its shot. The new owner didn't just buy a muscle car. They bought a piece of motorsport mythology, a symbol of what Australian car makers could have done if politics hadn't interfered. Truth number 8. Killing the Phase 4 crushed Ford's performance image. The Phase 4's cancellation didn't just stop one car, it killed Ford's high-performance mojo for decades. The engineers who worked on it, many left, some went overseas. The dream team dissolved. Ford tried to keep the spirit alive with the XB-GT and Cobra, but without a Phase 4, it all felt like leftovers. Meanwhile, Holden ran wild with Brock Commodores and HDT magic. Ford wouldn't regain its full performance credibility until the Tickford and FPV days of the 2000s. Truth number 9. It was decades ahead of its time. The Phase 4 didn't just borrow from race tech, it invented it for the road. Aerodynamic tuning, advanced cooling systems, high-speed durability testing, things we take for granted now, were bleeding edge in 1972. Ford even tested airflow management techniques on the XA shell that wouldn't become standard until the fuel crisis forced better designs in the late 70s and 80s. Structurally, the car was tough, planted, and refined. It was built to do 300-kilometre Bathurst stints without breaking a sweat, and still drive home comfortably. Truth number 10. It could have saved Ford Australia. Recently surfaced documents suggest the Phase 4 wasn't just a race car. It was meant to be the cornerstone of Ford's future strategy. The idea? Use the car's halo effect to lift sales across the range. Get younger buyers into Cortinas, Escorts, and Fairlanes. The engineering lessons would have trickled down into mainstream models, giving Ford the edge across the board. Instead, by folding under pressure, Ford surrendered the high-performance crown, and the long, slow decline of Ford Australia began. If they'd backed their engineers instead of caving to the press, things might have looked very different today. This car was the greatest Aussie muscle car that never got its shot. It wasn't beaten on the track, it wasn't beaten in the showroom, it was beaten by headlines, politics, and fear. But despite being cancelled, the legend only grew. With just a handful of cars, a stack of rumours, and a legacy built on what could have been, the Phase 4 has become a symbol of Australia's lost potential in motorsport and manufacturing. Because sometimes the greatest cars are the ones that never got the chance.